Hi, and welcome to Creating Space. This is the podcast editor, Colin. Unfortunately, Martin's microphone didn't record properly during the following session. We've processed it as best we can so that we're still able to share this conversation with you. You should be able to hear Martin's guests, Kayleigh and Usman, fine. It's just Martin's voice which might be a little difficult. We apologise if you find it distracting, and we'll make sure the audio quality is back to its best in future episodes of Creating Space. Hopefully, you'll still find this to be an interesting conversation.
I love doing yoga. I love doing a couple of classes a week.
Allow us to journey into these altered states.
It really whacked me psyche though, big time.
If you just sit reading books, it's the shadow because you're not going to be in your body.
Welcome to Creating Space. Bringing people together. Real conversations with real people. Telling stories and sharing our gifts right here in the heart of Liverpool. Inspiring new ideas, education and co-creation.
Choose a challenge that lights you up and is going to make a difference in the world.
Creating Space.
Sponsored by the Scouts Guru.
Okay, welcome to Creating Space. My name is Martin Bowen. Today I've got some super beings in the studio. I'm ready to lean into some really delicious content. Got a superb friend of mine, a female friend of mine. Her name is Kayleigh Woolvine. Kayleigh's a Liverpool girl, but she spent a lot of her early years working in London. She actually worked as an events manager for the BBC and the Telegraph. But over a demanding work and personal pressures, it really led to having a massive breakdown, which is now understood as a breakthrough. In search of spiritual healing, Kayleigh travelled to the East, studying and practicing yoga and Eastern philosophy to seek a deeper truth. And she was searching for the meaning of life. Her quest and numerous trips since to India and Thailand have taught her the power of holistic healing and self-empowerment. After qualifying as a yoga teacher 7 years ago, she now practices and teaches yoga, mindfulness and movements here in the heart of Liverpool. Within this time, she has overcome physical and mental trauma. Her work helps people find connection, embody radical self-acceptance, inner serenity and personal power through the movements of yoga and mindful action. These teachings are weaved into all her work via group sessions, private one-to-one sessions, and she is a proud coach of the NHS teams across Liverpool. She just wants to share and deepen her impact and her learnings with others. She now also runs her own popular signature weekend yoga and mindful retreats in the Lake District and beyond. Welcome to the studio, Kayleigh. We've also got Usman Ali. Usman is a great brother of mine. He was born in Burnley but raised here in Liverpool. He spent his early years as a Muslim, following the Islamic faith. He then started to seek answers from within from an early age of 18, finding both yoga and meditation. After travelling around the world for 2 years, Usman found himself living the dream he always wanted to live, but still felt a sense of emptiness. He returned home, feeling sick with inflammatory bowel disease, and dedicated his life to healing through natural means. He was successful and is currently thriving here on the planet. Usman now helps people thrive in the body and mind through yoga, meditation and natural movement. He provides one-to-one coaching here, right in the heart of Liverpool. He has overcome deep depression, severe anxiety, lack of purpose and confidence, addiction issues and many more of his demons. His personal transformation and the absolute enjoyment of life are his purpose. He is here to live and help others to do the same in the best possible way. Usman, welcome to the studio. Guys, thank you for being here. Welcome to Creating Space.
Thank you for having me on.
I've just been getting a sense of real connection. You two guys, I'm a big fan of you two guys actually. And I've had the pleasure of watching you develop, your skills here in Liverpool and how you hold space for people here in Liverpool. And what is a natural attraction for me is that you guys are walking the walk. There's definitely a grounding, authentic, real essence that comes from both you guys. And the way this podcast has just unfolded today, it just feels really, it just feels right to have you both here talking about, yoga, personal development, personal power. But, things like addiction, we've all got a story to tell here. So I'm really excited to just lean into these things. And sometimes I never know really how I want to start these conversations. And it felt just right to actually move straight into food, and that came from Usman just walked in the studio before and he asked how I was feeling. And I actually, I said I feel really full, having, eaten 2 cakes back to back. And just that moment of realising that maybe I've got a little bit of an addiction problem to sugar and to cakes. And then, I know Usman, he dived straight in and he's no stranger to this. And then Kayleigh walked in and, we sort of felt like this was going to be the topic that we were going to lean into as we begin this podcast. And so, there's definitely something which is alive at this moment in time that I feel as if it's an opportunity to talk about. And anyone tuning in today, I really hope that you can enjoy this conversation with these 2 super beings and enjoy what these guys have got to say. It's a really, it's just wonderful to have them in the studio. So, all being said, let's introduce you guys. Usman, how are you getting on there?
Full power. I'm here and I'm loving this opportunity, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, as a young man, do you know what I'm saying? It's just so fulfilling to be part of a group like this, to be invited into this space, man. Seeking approval is something that's been a theme of my life, especially seeking approval from older men, kind of projecting that father figure onto people. But right now, what I feel is more of a sense of friendship, a sense of community. I feel like I'm welcome here. And Planet Yoga, do you know what I'm saying? This is where it's popping off, bro. This is where it's happening. And I'm just really happy to be here. Obviously how I'm feeling in this moment is a little bit kind of like, there are thoughts about what to say and can I interject here and can I tell this joke there? I've got a lot of jokes.
Yeah.
Man.
So let's tell a joke.
I like to get silly. Yeah. Well, not so many jokes, but more just silliness, bro. Do you know what I mean? So I want to invite that in. I don't want to be sitting here all serious and like holding the space. Obviously, I want to hold the space, but I don't want to hold it so tightly that there's no room for silliness, right? So
I'll be the serious one, you be the silly one.
I'm bringing that in, bro. Laughter, authenticity, courage, just being myself on the mic. Exactly.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for that. And I remember the very first time I actually met you, probably a couple of years ago now, maybe about 18 months ago, and it was in eudaimonia. Actually, and it was before they called it eudaimonia. And then you were just bumbling around, you were on your own, you've very much confidence in your own space, you know what I mean? And even back then there was an inner smile which radiated from your experience, and there was definitely that real sense of innocence and playfulness, and every time we do converse, it seems to very much be alive in your experience, that, and thank you for transmitting that, not just into today but into people's lives. So yeah, it's awesome to have you here. It's awesome to feel that sort of freestyling nature that you're all about, and it's all welcome here at Planet Yoga, as you know. So it's all good. Kayleigh, how are you getting on there?
Yeah,
today?
I'm good. Yeah.
I know you got a big smile on your day. You're probably feeling that level of playfulness.
Oh, absolutely. I got the flippers on. I'm diving in for sure. No. I'm actually I really resonate with that, because we can get quite serious in this practice, can't we? It can get quite heavy. So I think it's important to dive into that, but also to be playful, to have fun, and to be light. So yeah, bringing everything into the space and just tapping into the joy.
Yeah, lovely. And we're all here together, and there's a very much a coherence between what we do in our professional endeavours here in Liverpool. We're all on a sort of mission of teaching, you know what I mean? You know, teaching yoga or teaching mindfulness and teaching embodiment. And also this feeling of just actually being ourselves, you know, and teaching people what it means to be authentic and being an advertisement for that stuff, you know what I mean? So I'm really looking forward to weaving all that in. But let's just come back to the food one for a moment. I know you've had, you know, you talked about having some issues with your bowels, you know, in the past, and you've been on that journey of self-healing, Usman. So that's where we're going to start today, and then, and I know Kayleigh's, you know, going to certainly add a bits and bobs in, you know, about the food. You're about to do a juice cleanse, I believe, Kayleigh, over the next couple of days. So let's still start with that, and then, you know, I'd really like to then get into the juice of what is yoga, you know, what are we doing here in Liverpool, you know, how are you feeling, you know, what's unfolding and how are you coming together and meeting new people and making new friends, and if there's a mission, there's a vision and all that kind of stuff, and that'll just I'm sure that'll naturally, organically happen as the conversation unfolds today. So yeah, let's get in there. Food.
Food, man. Consumption, putting things in your mouth. This is a problem. It can be a problem. It can also be very good. It can be fun, but it can be a demon. And this is something that I faced in my life, guys. To anyone that's listening here, right? Sugar. It's a drug. Do you know what I'm saying? It can be. And it can be such a comfort that we run to in order to fill this hole. And I'm not talking about your mouth. I'm not talking about any other physical hole. I'm talking about emotional holes and filling them with physical things. Or at least attempting to fill them with physical things. Do you know what I'm saying? So, funny enough, when you mentioned that time where we met in Liverpool Health and Wellbeing, I was actually in hell at that time.
Wow.
So you might not have seen it because I'm good at wearing a mask. If I want to wear the mask, I'll wear the mask, but I can also take those masks off. And at that time, I was beginning this downward spiral, let's call it, into a depression and an addictive phase of my life where I was smoking weed every day from morning till evening, and I was eating sugar from morning till evening, and mainly it was chocolate, you know what I'm saying? And guys, trust me, like, if I shared with you how much chocolate I was eating, you wouldn't believe it, that this could be consumed by a human being without vomiting. Bear in mind, without vomiting. So it's been a challenge in my life, you know. I actually looked back, or in fact remembered some baby photos that I'd seen of myself. And as a young kid, I never used to eat. I never used to eat so much. And my mum told me that was a problem for me when I was a kid. I had problems around food. I never used to consume. I was quite green in the skin and I didn't look well. And so I forgot about this time, and being a bit older now and having gone through that, I've asked myself the questions, you know, where's this come from? Surely, where's this pattern come from? Is it deep? Does it go to childhood? Does it go beyond childhood? If you're into that. And yeah, you know, it was really enlightening to see that, wow, okay, I've actually been experiencing this stuff from an early age, unaware to it. It was only when I then started practicing yoga and meditation that I became more aware of the things that I was doing, the behaviors that I had, the attitudes that I had towards consumption, food, or life in general. And after I started bringing awareness to my own patterns and thoughts, these demons kind of had the opportunity to come out. But in coming out, they must come to the surface, right? And they must be experienced. And so it sounds funny in a way, because sugar isn't taken seriously as a class A drug or a serious addiction. But it really took me to a dark place, just running away from life through food.
And we stuff a lot of emotions down, don't we, literally, by using, you know, food in all its glory. You know, when stuff's bubbling to the surface, we just sort of push it back down, you know, whether we're using, you know, the cakes, you know, whether we're using the alcohol, you know, whether we're using the chocolate. You know, we're shoving this stuff down. So having this stronger sense of awareness, which has been cultivated, you know, obviously with your journey of yoga and meditation, because it gives us a sense of being able to examine ourselves, doesn't it? You know, from from a place a place where we can create space, objectively observe some of our stuff, and then start to work with it. And that's where the journey really begins, isn't it, Usman? You know, because there has to be a sense of awareness. Awareness is like the key for me, and then once you've got the key, then you're able to unlock, I suppose, a lot of doors, a lot of these unconscious patterns, as you said, to really go on a journey of self-discovery, a journey of healing, a journey of which may feel upgrading, but it's not without its flaws, and it's not an easy ride, is it?
It's the journey.
Yeah.
It's the journey of a lifetime, do you know what I'm saying? This is what life is about. It's about facing our demons. It's about bringing them to the surface. It's about integrating them and growing into just the most beautiful versions of ourselves that can possibly exist. And that's all I'm about. That is all I'm about. I've been facing my demons just like everyone has, you know what I'm saying, for as long as I can remember. And this food consumption one is a really interesting one because, like you said, we can push down emotions, and something that this is a really beautiful point that I'd like to make. When we get introduced to this world of yoga and meditation, it's very easy for us to always want to be wearing this happy persona, this happy smile, this positive energy, right? And everyone's talking about it, you know what I mean? Like, out with the negative vibes, in with the positive ones.
Yeah.
Affirmations, all of that, none of these negative energies around me, do you know what I'm saying? And what happens is, or what can happen, is that we can then wear this mask of positivity that covers up the pain that might be underneath that. So what I was doing was suppressing a deep sadness that has been there in me since early days. I don't know why it's there. This is something that I'm actually examining into now, studying into. It's like, why does a child feel such a way? You know, how have they learned to feel that way? What reason do they have to feel that way? Is it in their DNA? Is it something that has actually happened in those early years of their life? I don't know. But there was a deep sadness anyway that I was covering up. And not only sadness being an emotion that I used to cover, but anger was also another one that I used to cover. So eating kind of has become, or did become, a way for me to kind of push these things down and in a way attempt to run away.
Yeah.
It was only that I realised one day, I'll tell you guys, if anyone's listening and they're thinking, bloody hell, I can't stop eating chocolate, I wish that I could be free from this. For me, it got to the day that I realised that there was no pause button on life. There was no pause button. There was no stop. And I was suffering at this time, and I was consuming a lot, and I was repeating the same cycles, same behaviours every single day. On some level, I was hoping that there would be a pause. I realised that I had to make that pause, that no one else was going to do it for me, and that if I continued, there ain't no saviour coming to get me. Do you know what I'm saying? It's either this or that. And so in that moment, it was kind of just like, wow, ain't no pause button on life. I've got to commit to life instead. Do you know what I mean? I've got to face life head on instead of trying to run away. So
we have these voids, don't we? You know what I mean? There's these you know, the comfort eating, you know what I mean? You know, we use, it's like food's not really, it's always there, isn't it? You know, it's like our best friend, you know, it's non-judgmental. It's like, it's always available, and, you know, it's always there it's like fake love, really, isn't it? It's like that little bit of love, that little hug that you need, that little bit of tender love and care that you need. And we're just, you know, filling a void, you know, we're filling these voids that we've got of feeling unholy. You know, there's something that, from my perspective, a sense of longing for this wholeness, you know, longing for you to be held by your mother, to be held by your father. And sometimes these patterns of addictions, you know, they draw upon an experience within our lives where, we're just filling some sort of void or other, you know, and and how can you relate to that? Like, you know, is it what voids, you know, looking back into your past, and where have these addictions come from? Man,
I'll go right in and I'll share with you. So just a little bit of foundation on this, just so you got a little bit of understanding, anyone that's listening. I've studied something called macrobiotics, which is a strange name. It sounds like biology or something like that, right? But it's not. It's Japanese philosophy mixed with Chinese medicine. So we're understanding how food affects the energy of the body, the mind, and the spirit. In other words, you are what you eat, but not just on a physical level. It changes your behavior, it changes your thinking, it changes your attitude. So sugar in macrobiotics is labeled as yin. Macrobiotics is all about this yin-yang split, masculine, feminine energy, right? And sugar is classed as yin. So this is the feminine energy, right? And from as early as I can remember, I have struggled with my relationship to women. And I feel like a lot of that stems from the relationship to my mother. Yeah. Now, Mum, I love you if you listen to this, you know what I'm saying? And this isn't in any way a complaint. This isn't a complaint. This is just the truth of how I felt. And, you know, it's just honesty. What I realised is that there's a longing for me to have this kind of connection with my mum. I've wanted this deep connection with her for so long, and especially coming back from travelling. I was living on the beach with rainbow people, do you know what I'm saying? We were celebrating love, sharing with each other, open-heartedness on a level that I haven't experienced ever before, especially being raised as a Muslim here in Liverpool. We were hugging and loving each other so much, it was amazing, right? And so I came back from travelling feeling like I wanted to share this level of love with my mum, with my sisters, with my brother, with my father, with everyone. But the mother, it's really interesting, is that I've always kind of felt this sense of neediness or this need for approval, right? And this emptiness that comes there, this emptiness that is there from wanting this deep connection with me mum. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, right? But in some way, that was driving the behaviour of sugar addiction and even smoking addiction, because that is considered to be high on the yin scale as well. Now, get this, funny enough, or not even funny enough, just like beautiful enough, there was one day where I'd had enough and I was so tired of this repetitive, destructive cycle of behaviour. I felt sick in my body, do you know what I'm saying? And I didn't want to live. At this point, it took me low. That day, I went into the kitchen. I started singing to myself. I just started singing a song. I started crying and this deep sadness started coming out, and it was hurting, but it was beautiful to come out. And I really encourage people to let themselves cry and let the emotion, let the energy flow. And that's really something that I want to help people with. As I release this energy, my mum comes into the kitchen. She says, "You okay, son?" I looked at her and I was like, "No, I'm really not." I hugged her. I cried on her shoulder. I had a deep connection with my mum. This longing was filled. The next day, no joke, the next day, no craving for sugar, no craving for smoke. Full power. Honestly, amazing. Can't explain it. I can't explain it. I can try, but we'll just theorize and we'll just get into all of this gymnastics of the mind, innit? The fact is, this happened and this was my experience. I had that deep connection with my mum, and it's like, if there are mothers listening right now, give your children that love. Don't harden up, you know what I mean? Because you were hurt or something. Don't allow that to happen. Give your child that love because they need it, you know what I'm saying? And I needed it, and I got it. And I'm thankful for that time.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. You know, for anyone listening here, it's just good to listen to, firstly, the enthusiasm coming out of Usman today. You know, there's an aliveness there, and there's also a direct experience and a revelation, you know, to actually understand how these things play out in our lives and to actually realise them and then reveal them and then start to work with them. You know, this is a process of well-being, isn't it? It's a lifestyle. You know, it's a process of becoming whole. And I know now, having, you know, from my perspective, we have to have the direct experience, don't we, you know, of these things for us to then hold the space, not just for ourselves and our future selves, but for for the people around us, and I know you're really moving into this direction where you want to share who you are, you want to share your story, because we've all got a story to tell, but you also want to share, these direct experiences for the benefit of others.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we do live in a society where everyone's got an addiction to something, and it's because there's a void, there's a massive void, there's a hole in our lives, and when we start to take a look at these holes and actually start to love these aspects of ourselves, and that's where we start to really integrate. So just bringing Kayleigh into this situation, listening to Usman here talk about food and weaving in stuff about integration and addiction. Kay, looking back into your own life, where do you feel like or what do you feel like you've been addicted to, and how have you overcome these issues to date?
Thank you, and thank you so much, Usman, for sharing so much I can resonate with, and I'm like, blah, 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 where do I even start? So yeah, I'm just going to dive in. I think that as human beings, we act out of either fear or love. So from this place of fear, there is addictions. So that addiction can be food, it can be drugs, it can be alcohol, it can be sex, it can be binge watching Love Island, it can be sleep, it can be anything. But there's so many labels nowadays. But we are searching through addiction for love, for this place of feeling whole. So food, that hit, it's something to be present with. It's a distraction. It takes us away from that emptiness, that pain. We live in a world that is so fast paced, and there's constant advertisements on being happy, the pressure, the force of being fulfilled and attaining this within, a few minutes or a week, or, there's this constant pressure to consume. To consume, exactly. So I think that I can really understand, because I've been through that myself, and the pain was very, very deep rooted, and my meditation was food, because it took me away from that, from the wounds, and a real place and a real shift for me was not who can help me, because I was reading all these self-help books and, ringing loads of different people. And then I was binge eating, and then I was going on a diet for 3 days. And instead of asking who can help me, it's how can I help myself? And really listening to the body's wisdom, because only through listening to your body, the answers start to come to life. So also reading loads of books. I love to read. I'm a seeker. However, that can also be a distraction, because we're formulating ideas from other people's ideologies, from other people's truth, and it's actually, what is your truth? And why am I eating this food? Why am I addicted? What is the cause? Because there's so much healing. There's a lot of alternative and holistic symptoms for pain, but it's actually getting to that root cause. And Usman, the root cause for you, it sounds like the feeling and the love from your mother. So, when you gained that love and that filled you up, the addiction started to dissolve. Whereby, imagine if we could just really stop and listen to the body and start speaking to ourselves to get those answers, which are always there, they're always within us. But we've just got to stop and have the courage to feel and to bathe in the pain.
Yeah. And I think, from one perspective or another, is that pain is seen to be a bad thing, isn't it? And when we start to maybe reframe our mindsets, and to we've got to welcome the pain, haven't we? You know, we've got to sit with our pain, because the pain's ours. It's come up in our experience. We've got to sit with sadness. You know, we got to sit with longing. We got to sit with everything that does come up within our experience. And you know, unfortunately, because we've become so cerebral nowadays, we're just so in the head. You know, and then we're stuffing our emotions down with food. We don't really invite a platform for us to feel, do we? You know, for us to really feel our emotions, really to feel the physical body. You know, how does it feel once you let that food? And we're all different, aren't we? You know what I mean? You know, going on a juice fast isn't for everybody. Do you know what I mean? You know, and you know, eating greens isn't for everybody. We've all got a different constitution. Not that we're going to weave that into the conversation today, because that's probably a whole new podcast. You know, really diving into the food one. But you know, talking on terms of embodiments, how do you listen to your body today? And you know, what practices have you embodied over the period of the last 7 to 10 years? You know, especially with the yoga, to give you an understanding on what works for you and when it works for you.
Absolutely. So I think when I started getting into yoga, I've become addicted, because it's what we do. We change the pattern. So we can go from being in not so aware and having these, you know, addictions with food or with going out or whatever, and then we just channel it into this holistic way. So we have to be conscious, and it's not saying in the classes, you know, what are you using yoga for? Are you using it to really dive in and listen, or are you using it as an escapism to come away from and not deal with your shit, basically? So yeah, when I first started yoga, I was addicted to it, and I was in a vulnerable place. So when we're vulnerable, we trust others so much without trusting our own wisdom. So we absolutely give our power away. So I've done the fasting. You know, I fasted for on and off for about 3 years, twice a week religiously. And then I'd done the vegan one, then I'd done the vegetarian one, then I'd done the meat one, then I'd done everything, you know, and then eat right, and then I went to India, then I was eating rice every day for a week, and then I wasn't eating, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, just really not listening to my body, and then I got ill, really, really ill. So, yeah, taking it back to what was the question?
What was the question? You know, how you know,
embody, feeling, listen to a body.
Yeah, what is that you listen to?
The practice, yeah. So I started. It was when I got sick. It's when we hit rock bottom that we start to become broken open. And I started journaling, and I started really being conscious of how my body spoke to me after I ate. How my body spoke to me after the certain people that I was around, how my body spoke to me after my yoga practice, how I was digesting my environment, because this is, you know, I think this is crucial. And not reading, not watching documentaries, not investing in other people's philosophy, but trying to create my own. So now my yoga practice is my practice is one of deep listening. So I get up every day. I get up at about 4:45, have my coffee, and then I get on the mat, and I soften into my body. I soften into any pain, any joy. I soften into the emotion, because that's our body's language. Our body is speaking to us through emotion. But do we have the bravery to be able to translate that? So I have my journal next to me, and then every movement, every pose, every breath is speaking to me in a way that that I really need to stop and listen to that. So it's actually like coming into another dimension, you know, because your mat is your sacred space. And it's all about finding that flow that works for you. Again, you know, I was going to India doing all this really strong vinyasa. It wasn't serving me. So coming to the place of, yeah, like getting on the mat and what is true for you, And how you might feel on Monday might be completely different on Tuesday. You might be standing on your head for an hour on Monday, but then, you're flat out in Savasana for like 90 minutes on Tuesday. But it's tuning into what your body needs at that time and being in flow, being in the Tao, being in the centre. Yeah.
It's powerful stuff, and obviously this inner listening is something that we're not really conditioned. We're not taught, are we, to truly listen to ourselves, but and even from an early age, we listen to others. You know what I mean? We listen to our peers, we listen to our teachers, or as Usman was referencing before, you're looking for that. You're looking for that praise. You know what I mean? There's a gap there. You're looking to be seen. Oh, to be seen. We're all looking to be seen by something or someone. Do you recognise me? Did you see me do that great thing? Did you see me hold the door open for that person? There's always, and even again, it's always this sense of longing. For looking for something. And I know you were speaking about searching there, and so how then is yoga then being this platform for you to really not just listen to oneself and embody obviously a level of empowerment and a level of courage to speak your truth and own it, but the platform of how it's been a journey of awakening and a journey of understanding and a journey of integration. Where did it all begin? Do you remember your first yoga class?
Yeah, I do. And there's something that is really lit up for me there, what you've just said about ownership and taking responsibility. And I think that is vital for growth and to blossom and to flourish into an empowered person. To stand in your power, you need to own your shadow and really understand your patterns. And I think this is really what yoga is. Union is one, isn't it? It means to unite, to yog, to bring together the body, the breath, the spirit, but also the pattern, also the ego. There's Ryan Holiday's got a book, what is it? The Ego is the Enemy. And I love his work, actually. I think he's a great author. But that really triggered me. The ego is the enemy. But then there's that, there's that neglecting the ego, when actually we need to own the ego. What are my patterns? Yeah, we really do. And we need to, because there's wisdom in the ego. It's showing us our pain, it's showing us our triggers, it's showing us our control dramas. It's showing me when I'm being a victim, it's showing me when I go aloof, it's showing me when I turn into a bitch and we start to pass blame when it's actually okay. Why am I being a victim? Okay, and then we really can go into that place and understand that it was a trigger from, I don't know, maybe from childhood. And really by owning that, that's when we can release that. That's when we create space. That's when we can really start to come into a place of humility and understanding for others. Because when we're projecting onto somebody else, that's just coming from a place of pain that we haven't healed. And we can take things so personally. So when you're having an argument with somebody, a friend, you think, oh my God, it's about me, but it's not. It's about them. It's just that it's part of them that they haven't been able to work with and overcome. Whereas when we start to overcome our own ego patterns, we can really start creating authentic relationships and unity with others.
So this journey of being, in the yoga world, practicing yoga, listening to your body, is giving you, by what you're talking about here, a sense of how to behave, a sense of how to take ownership, a sense of how to take responsibility. You talked about the shadow there, and for anyone again tuning in, the shadow aspect of our personality is the stuff that goes unnoticed, the stuff that goes unwanted. It's the phantom self, I suppose. And it's the shadow that plays out unconsciously in our patterns of habits. You know what I mean? And these memorized behaviors. And a lot of it's very much connected to the ego, isn't it? Connected to how we take things personally. And then, as you said, when we don't take responsibility, maybe we fall into what is known as the victim when life's happening to us, then we're very quick to lay blame, aren't we, and point the finger elsewhere. We're very quick to project unconsciously these shadow aspects of ourselves neatly onto other people, because we never really want to take ownership, do we? We never want to say, you know what, actually, that's my fault. That's my stuff. I'm going to look in the mirror at that stuff. I'm going to own that stuff. I'm going to take responsibility for that projection. And I'm going to start to do something about it. But, you know, what we're talking about here certainly took me a while, a long time, not just to understand, but to apply. You know what I mean? Understanding this is one thing, applying it is another. And I know this journey that you've been on with yoga is obviously giving you a container, a healthy container for you to create space to listen. And that's, I suppose, where we've come to so far in this conversation. Let's bring Usman into the conversation here, because I know you've been practicing a lot of yoga, Usman, and you know, you've travelled around the world. Talking about, you know, or listening here to what we're talking about, what's alive in your experience?
I love to yog. I love that when Kayleigh said that. That's what yoga, to yog. Go on then. I'll have that as a verb. To yog. Sound, let's do it. Let's do it. Yog on. Yoga for me is a really interesting one because when I was about 17 years old, I started weight training like most guys do. Do you know what I mean? A lot of us get into lifting weights and we seek solace in the gym. Yeah. And it was that temple for me. The gym was. It was a really amazing place for me to have an expulsion of energy, to let energy out and to grow with myself and the community as well. That was a really core part of my life, was the gym days. But I was led to yoga because lifting weights for so long, for some reason, I was never satisfied with that weight that I was lifting. I was never satisfied with the goal that I would achieve. I was always beating myself up over it. If I didn't get that lift, if I didn't get that deadlift, or if I didn't get that squat, I was really beating myself up about it. And I took it seriously. Yeah. Like, I was waking up at 5 a.m, one of the first people at the gym, I'd be there deadlifting with cold, rusty barbells. Do you know what I'm saying? It was a grind. Yeah. Now, like I said, I wasn't satisfied though, right? So I sought something else. I thought one day, I looked in the mirror, I thought, right, I'm going to give this up. I'm just going to take the day off the gym today. And at that time, that was a big thing. It sounds small, right? But I took the day off and I said, I'm not going in today. And soon enough, I was introduced to yoga through a friend. And at first I thought, what am I doing here? This is for girls, this, you know what I mean? Like, that was my attitude at the time. I didn't see myself practicing yoga consistently, but something just flicked me soul. Do you know what I mean? Something just tapped it. A bell was rung inside of me. And I took an affinity to it. I started practicing yoga every day. I actually started through YouTube. Funny enough, learning through the internet, which is something that, yeah, it's so beautiful how we can do that today, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I learned so much in my first 2 years of yoga practicing through YouTube that I'd then be able to develop my own routines and my own styles and my own flows. So that's how it kind of came into my life. And it's given me an avenue now of movement where I can explore strength, flexibility, stability, all of the core natural movements that a human body is required to do. It's given me a really good avenue to explore them without getting so much into that ego, you know, without getting so much into the numbers, into the aesthetics, into, you know, more kind of superficial goals that I used to set when I was training in the gym so much. So it's really been a paradigm shift for me, especially training with no equipment, you know, just on the mat. To be honest, most of the time I don't even use a mat. Do you know what I mean? I'll train outside on the sand, on the grass, on the rocks, on the street, in the train station, at the bus station, wherever I am. In the job centre at one point I was doing yoga in there and they were telling me to stop. I was just like, sorry, no, I'm going to stretch out these muscles right now. Do you know what I mean? So it's been a really beautiful path. It's still early days. You know, I see myself continuing this practice as I continue to live.
Because I know you always haven't lived in Liverpool, have you? That's correct. You were in Brighton for a while.
I was, yeah. I was in Brighton for 2 years, just exploring and seeing what it was like to live in a different city.
And was that before you went travelling, was it? Or
That was, yeah.
So you were in Brighton for 2 years, you went travelling for 2 years, and then you came back to Liverpool.
And then I came
How long
back.
have you been back in Liverpool for?
About 2 years.
Yeah, about 2 years. Wow. So there's a a 6-year journey here. So and going from Brighton, was that where your first yoga session was? Because I know you're around 27 now, and you were talking about being in the gym around 18, 19. So practicing yoga about 6 years, 7 years?
Yeah, I've been practicing for about 6 or 7 years. Brighton was the first place where I actually attended a class.
Yeah.
And that was really powerful because it was the first time I'd actually been in the presence of a teacher that I felt this love and respect for. And I knew that he was seeing me as well. And he was challenging me. It was stimulating me. And I just loved that experience.
And how was that? Going from like practicing at home, feeling your way into your own stuff, but then going to a class, and full of people, good energy, music, especially if you go to not disrespecting, church halls or leisure centres, but when you maybe go to a bit of a dedicated yoga studio where the ambience and the environment, there's a bit of a different energy. Sometimes even something so simple as the right music, the right lighting, and the right teacher can create space for an incredible experience. And I know, it's an avenue you've now moved into becoming a yoga teacher. But, going on that first experience, being in a yoga class, and then, how did that unfold? What happened from there? Did you practice? Did you start to practice on a weekly basis? Did you do some practice when you were away on your travels? And then, obviously, I know you're diving into the practice here in Liverpool, and you've been to Planet Yoga many times. And how's it unfolded for you? I'm sure you've learned from other teachers, and mixed with your own direct experience to bring about who you are as a person today.
Okay, how has it unfolded? This is a beautiful one. You see, so in the beginning, I said that it all started online, right? It started with YouTube. It started with just practicing at home and just kind of having a go. But then what it evolved into was a daily practice that I didn't miss for anything, because I just felt how good it felt in my body and in my mind to be so connected and to be so calm, especially at the start of the day. Now, I didn't really have a style, or I didn't really have a discipline specifically that I was following. Yeah, I went to a few classes here and there, but those classes were kind of just like little experiences. They weren't some kind of revelation for me or significant component of my yoga journey. Those classes were just kind of an experience. It was when I was traveling, and guys, I was traveling like nomad style. So it was backpack, tent, and the thumb out on the side of the road. I was doing it bare bones, hustling food for free from the markets, sleeping in my tent every single night, sleeping in weird places. Trust me, like just strange locations in the middle of, the highway in Spain, for example. And what I felt in my body traveling that way, especially wearing such a heavy backpack every day, was that yoga was something that I needed to have as a daily practice. And as I was traveling, I fell out of that practice because I was busy. Do you know what I mean? I had an objective. I was out in the world. I was out and about, and I didn't really make the opportunity to practice. But then one day I woke up and I thought, right, I really need to get back on this because my body feels like shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Don't know if swearing's okay. Yeah. And my mind feels like shit as well. Do you know what I mean? I'm scared, don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight. Don't know if there's a storm that's going to come and destroy all my possessions that I've got on my back. So I decided, and this is actually something that I've shared, or I will be sharing on YouTube soon. I've got a YouTube channel that's coming out soon. It's going to be filled with amazing content. One thing I loved, one thing that I share with people, one of the core fundamental components of my discipline and how I've stayed so consistent over many years is that I set my bar so low that as I was out there on the road, I said to myself, right, 1 minute of yoga a day, 1 minute of meditation a day.
Nice.
I believe that's enough for me. And I understand how that baby step is actually going to fill my cup with a little drop every single day and that's going to take me to beautiful places in the end. So instead of just like a 30-day smash it and then the rest of the year do nothing, I really started to develop this consistency.
Yeah.
That's when everything changed.
That's where the mother is, isn't it?
That's where it is, because it then just became a part of how I breathe.
Yeah.
Just became a part of how I live, and it still is today. It's part of my morning ritual, of course. Do you know what I mean? And
so it's not just something you do, it becomes something you are.
100%, man. It's like, if we are going to identify with some kind of identity, yeah, it's definitely part of my identity that I wake up in the morning and I practice yoga.
So yoga is to that feel like community between body, mind and spirit.
Yeah, 100%. And that consistent practice is something that is invaluable to me. And I don't give no one me time in the morning. I really don't give no one me time. I don't give me nan me time. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm like, sorry, nan, yoga first. Then, you know what I'm saying? I'll come and give you a big hug.
Yeah, nice. And it's something so important in being a bit selfful, isn't it? You know what I mean? And getting up and having a sacred practice and embodying, the practice itself. Yeah. And obviously, from my perspective, and I can really resonate with the journey you've had, and going to the gym, lifting weights. I think it's definitely a man thing. You know what I mean? There's a sense of wanting to grow into manhood. There's probably a deeper sense of initiation of wanting to go from a boy. You're going through puberty. You want to grow your muscles. You want to be in the world. You want to be seen as well. You want to be seen by women. You want to be seen to be strong by other men. And so there's a competitive edge there as well. So going it, it takes you so far, doesn't it? But again, there's a level of something which is just unfulfilled. And I can really resonate with the journey in the gym. For many years, pounding it out and lifting weights, but you were just never truly satisfied.
Never
with it, and it takes me back. As you were sharing your story, and my first yoga session. My first yoga session actually was an Iyengar class, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. It was only Martin, and in that I reckon I'd really enjoy it now actually, but I hated it. I didn't know what it was about, and I was looking for something else. And so it was a perception of what I hated at the moment. It was obviously just showing me something about myself that I maybe disliked, but I didn't have the faculties to be able to really contemplate what was alive in them moments. However, I remember going to my first yoga session in Yoga Nation, and this was around 2011. And I was really banged into the gym, loved, going at it. And there was just this session, and it was like super hot in the room. The music was like, pumping, and the teacher was guiding us through this class. And it was the first time I'd ever felt spiritual beyond the dance floor. There was a connection there for me, but it also gave me the dimension of having a workout. You know what I mean? It was a great workout. There was a page. It was sweaty. It was emotional. It was connected. It was wholesome. The vibe in the room. It was 30 people in the room. You felt like it was incredibly potent. And then that was the journey that was the yoga journey as it really started to happen. And so anyone listening to this, we're talking about yoga. There's many different schools of yoga, and I'm really looking forward to just allowing Kayleigh to dive into into that aspect of the conversation shortly. But it's, from my perspective and what I've learned, it's about embodiment. It's about feeling. It's about feeling yourself, and it's about allowing all these things to bubble to the surface, and it's about integrating them and really strengthening this spectrum of awareness so we can take a good look at the things that go unexamined in our lives, especially the shadow, as we were speaking about before. But it doesn't necessarily have to be yoga. It might be going to the gym, it might be going for a run, it might be jiu-jitsu, it might be wrestling, it could be anything, it could be art, it can be anything. It's for anyone listening today, it's finding something which allows you to feel, isn't it? And something which creates space for you to feel into your own experiences. And this is maybe, I know you like to use this term, mastery. We're moving into a space of mastery here. But, you know, if we are just talking in terms of yoga and into the modalities that the practice has to offer, there's many different methods, many different styles. And, you know, here in Liverpool, especially now for quite some time, there are a number of yoga schools and a hell of a lot of teachers all teaching different styles, different classes, hot yoga, non-hot yoga, you know, or I'd like to say yoga in a heated room, you know, because sometimes people think hot yoga is a style of yoga. And really now it's just yoga, you know, and it's just getting practiced in so many different centres across the city. And you guys have both become a yoga teacher, you know, and feel into what that means, you know, holding space for other people. You've obviously been on a journey of self-discovery. And yeah, it's a wonderful, there's a penny that drops somewhere in your experience where you're thinking, okay, I'm actually feeling pretty full here, and I now want to serve. I want to serve in other people's evolution. I want people to taste what I'm feeling. I want people to taste this fruit that I'm tasting, because this tastes good.
Yeah.
It tastes very good. So being a yoga teacher here in Liverpool, Kayleigh, and developing, you know, your own personal practice and weaving your way into all the yoga studios, how's it been for you? You know, and how do you look at yoga in Liverpool, and what lights you up here, and what is it that you teach?
So I think a really important point there is the yoga teacher in the room is the student. The student is the teacher. So we are just, you know, we're all yoga teachers. We are merely guides, and our job is to guide people to their own inner teacher, their own inner guru, and having the intelligence to be able to cue people to that point of knowingness, what's good for my body. Because what's good for my body may not be good for Usman's body. So, you know, even when it comes to inhale and exhale, I try and divert away from saying that now. Because somebody might be exhaling when you say inhale. It's not about that. That's just a guide, you know, to keep the breath consistent. So, yeah, and I think people may be listening to this thinking, wow, it sounds great, but I just can't do it. I can't touch my toes. Well, that's why you need to do it then. You know, to really step into that fear and know that it's not about that. It's about touching your soul, you know, it's about touching your heart, it's about touching what matters to you.
Going to your own edge in physically in the practice, isn't it? You know, the goal is not to touch the toes, the goal is to just move towards an edge, you know, which feels good for you, you know, and listen to that. And there's massive lessons in just, you know, being able to understand what's alive in your experience. And have you gone to that compassionate space before it feels painful, and which becomes counterproductive in the practice, as you know.
This is a practice of letting go, you know, being firm and relaxing your body and in your mind. So when we were talking about morning practice there, in my head I was thinking, you know, so many people might be like, but I don't know how to do that. I've tried getting on the mat and I can't do it. I've had that a lot. When actually it's just about, first of all, creating the space. So before you go to bed, get the mat in the living room. Put your slippers next to your bed.
That's intention, doesn't it? Yeah. Absolutely.
This is what life is about. It's our intention, isn't it? So have your slippers there. So as soon as you get out of bed, your slippers are there. Your coffee cup is next to the kettle. So you just put it on. So you're ready. Sometimes I have a morning where I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to flow today. I'll write down 4 poses. So that gives me a foundation. But then when you're in that, and then when you're present in those poses, that's when the flow starts. And like you said, you know, yoga is about, it's not just asana. You know, yoga can be, how do we take this practice off the mat for the other 23 hours a day? Yoga is the art of life. So you might be doing yoga when you're running, when you're doing the dishes. It's all about just being present, all about feeling, you know, and this pure unity, and, you know, connecting to we've got to be careful about our language as well, connecting to our higher self. What does that mean? It's connecting to a place of of peace. I don't like to use the word happiness. It's too strong. People, I need to be happy, I need to be happy. Let's go with contentment. But we can only be in a place of contentment when we can deal with our shadow, when we can deal with all aspects of ourselves that we've neglected. Because if we're resisting, I hate that, I hate my tummy, oh my God, this is coming up and I can't stand it. We're pushing, we're fighting when it's all about, okay, I honour these feelings, I honour this darkness. And when we honour it and when we sit in it, we can really feel it and watch it, and then it starts to release.
That's healing, isn't it? It's self-love.
It is. And do you know what, Martin? I don't even use the word self-love. Like when you were talking earlier about what I embody, and I teach radical self-acceptance. That again, you know, people may not even like themselves and we're asking them to love a part of ourselves. I think we need to connect with that first and sit in acceptance. And then from the acceptance, that's where the understanding comes from. And then the love, and then, you know, when we love ourselves, then we can love others, we love the world. But everything outside of us is just a projection of what's going on within. Absolutely. What's going on now in the world is it's a war within ourselves. You know, this is an inner war that we're going through. This isn't an inner virus. But can we sit in the stillness, or can we move in the movement, but continue to feel and not be so in the mind and in judgment by judging another is judging ourselves.
Because on a deeper level, we are all, you know, without it going too heavy here, we're just one. There's just this one essence, and everybody in the world is a mirror for us to see our stuff, you know, and we're triggered all the time by the external world. But really, it's given us an opportunity to take a look at the things that we haven't noticed within ourselves, that we're not integrating within ourselves. And you know, just we come back to the yoga one here, but just yoga just gives us an opportunity to create the space, doesn't it, for us to dive into this stuff. And over time to not just reprogram these mental constructs which have been conditioned upon us, you know, by the world, but also gives us an opportunity to make some skilled choices, you know, to see moments as they are, and to make choices around, you know, where do I want to go in my life, and what do I want to do, and what lights me up, and that's absolutely a level of awareness, a level of courage.
I think also, you know, it can sound quite heavy, you know, and I think that when a lot of people can come to yoga, and I certainly did, because we're looking for some healing mechanism, you know, but when we transmute that pain or really purge out the heaviness, you know, that more playful side of our being comes out, and that's our innate nature, to be playful, to have fun, to be light, to embody this fun essence of ourselves.
And it feels good, doesn't it, when we've done a yoga class? You know, when
we feel there's a high.
Yeah, there's a high there, isn't it?
Flying.
And if we're going to get addicted to anything, we might as well get addicted to a yoga class, you know, and the feeling, the teacher that presents itself after the yoga class. That's where we really need to be listening. When you do a yoga class, you feel this vibe, there's this echo, and you're like, okay, wow, this feels good. This feels very good. And so people start to go on that journey. I mean, yoga's very trendy now in Liverpool, isn't it? And, you know, as I said before, there's a lot of yoga studios, and there's so many eclectic mixes and styles and wonderful teachers out there. But really, everyone's a teacher. You know, everyone's teaching us something, and everyone comes to yoga for different purposes. You know, it can be it can be just a trendy thing. Oh, I want to try this hot yoga. What's this all about? You know, and they just come in with the mate, and they just want to get a bit sweaty, or they want to lose a bit of weight, and then you know, and
that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. You know, and it's so we have to own our own motivations for why we're going to the studio, or these studios here in Liverpool, and then honour all that stuff. But I think what's so beautiful is that, you know, is to certainly honour, you know, a need or a motivation behind some of the sessions, but also to honour a more of an open mind to receive a lot more of the juice, you know, a lot more of the treasure that starts to present itself as we dive into the practice. And as being a yoga teacher here in Liverpool, I'm sure you've witnessed so much transformation with all the students that you come across. And, I know you're now leaning into holding your own retreats. And again, we've been here now at Planet Yoga since 2012, and we've had thousands of people, and I mean thousands of people walking through this door. And if there's probably one thing that I could take it away, if it all ended tomorrow, is the transformation that you see in people. You know what I mean? And you see the community as well. People coming together, people coming in on their own. They meet new people, they make new friends, and then there's a lovely community here as well, isn't there? You know what I mean? It's a boss vibe, and I'm truly proud of not just what Planet Yoga's become, but I'm truly proud of the city. You know what I mean? And how it's the yoga senses, and it's not just all about yoga here for anyone tuning into this conversation, but how the yoga senses have played a big part in awakening. You know what I mean? In ownership, responsibility, community. There is some spiritual materialism out there, and yet it can backdoor the ego. But you know what? It's a journey we all go on at some stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think also when you're talking about yoga, you're talking about awareness. So if people are thinking, it's just yoga. What we're really talking about here is awakening.
Absolutely. Just being aware.
Yeah.
Being aware. And that is a gold ticket, isn't it, Usman?
It is, and I really resonate with what you have been saying about you are the teacher. The guru is inside of you, and when you step onto the mat, what is a real game changer is when you start to just learn how to feel into the body and prescribe the body exactly what it wants. You might not even have a name for it, you know what I mean? Like a name for a specific posture or this or that. Just moving like you're giving a massage to your body almost. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is it. It's like when we learn to move in a way that's like medicinal, it's pleasurable. It's like, we create this connection between exercising, if that's what you want to call it, and, hard work, so that it can really feel like a bit of a drag getting ourselves up, exercising that discipline and using willpower to get ourselves on the mat. But when it's a medicine, and when it's a pleasure, and when it's like you're getting a massage, you're just prescribing that massage to yourself, then it's a complete game changer, because you're not really bothered about what postures you can get into per se. And I'm all about aiming for specific goals too. Like I really love the pursuit for new and more advanced moves. But what has been a real kind of pivotal part of my yoga journey has been letting go of it all. Letting go of the postures, letting go of the names, letting go of the time, letting go of the reason, other than just to be there with my body and feed it in the way that it wants to be fed in that moment. Do you know what I'm saying there?
Yeah, nice.
It's a real game changer to just kind of like, we're all sore in some way. We've all got, cricks and imbalances here and there. Once you start to alleviate them and bring them into balance, it feels pleasurable. Do you know what I'm saying? So you don't really need to use discipline to get onto the mat when you're framing it that way. And that's the way that I kind of experience it. We can have strong practices, and if you come to any of my classes, usually the vibe is a bit more strong. But I'm also so much more about the gentle kind of listening flow as well. Just listening to the body, getting out of the way. And that was one word that really stood out to me, guys, as you were talking, was allowing. When we allow the body to just, do you know what I mean? Just to move in the way that it wants to move, to alleviate that particular piece of tension or that specific area that feels out of balance. When we learn to just listen and get into the flow of it, that seriousness goes away. We start moving a bit weird on the mat. Do you know what I mean? Inviting in that kind of like animalistic flow.
But you've got to step out the way, like you just said. You have to step out the way.
Yeah.
Because the mind wants to lead. The mind wants to guide.
Absolutely. I think we have to honour the mind. And also, what is also a big part of what I'd like to just bring in here is what are we cultivating when we're on a yoga mat? You know what I mean? It's all well and good listening listening to the needs. But also we have to go, like, we have to push into these uncomfortable places, don't we? That's where there's growth, you know. Sometimes we go into a posture and it can be so easy to maybe just come out of it because it feels a bit, it's a bit strong, this and that. That's why I love the dynamic of a class, you know what I mean? Because sometimes you can feed off the energy of other people, or you can feed off the yoga teacher who's maybe just taking you a little step further than what's comfortable for you. And then boom, that's where there's growth.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a fine line between completely honouring and listening to oneself, but also visiting an edge, an intelligence edge, and then maybe just moving beyond it. And that's where we can also cultivate many behaviours of willpower, you know, of confidence and discipline and achievement.
It's really interesting, isn't it?
Fine line, isn't there?
There is a fine line, and both sides of the coin are important and relevant.
Absolutely.
So that discipline and that warrior energy that we can bring into the room when we're, you know, let's say we're in a posture that's challenging for us, that's so important for our lives, to have that faculty of pushing beyond limitations, right? Going that extra step and not giving up. But then there's also on the flip side of the coin, it's like, when do we give ourselves a break? We're so easy to push ourselves and push, you know, if anything, it's the default of today's world is to kind of push.
Yeah.
And so it's a really good opportunity for us to soften and be a bit more kind of motherly, I guess, to ourselves.
I mean, what I really liked before, what Kayleigh said, she talked about the Tao. And, you know, the essence of the Tao is learning how to yield. You know, there's a yielding element to how sometimes we have to just pull back. You know, we don't always have to go to the edge. You know, we can just go to a place which is, that's sort of, I mean, as Eric Schiffman would say, that sort of first gate of resistance, you just go there. And you might want to rest there and stay there, you know. So the beauty of the practice, it's got so many layers and levels to it, you know, and you can play around with it all. And yeah, it's powerful stuff. What do you teach then, Kay, if you were going to label anything of you know?
Yeah, just touch on what you just said there. I think that the intelligence is the knowingness of your patterns. So am I just sitting off and being lazy?
Yeah.
Am I just wanting to soften? Or do I have the capacity and the space to tap into willpower and more strength?
Yeah,
you know, but that only comes with a dedicated practice and a deep listening.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to work at this. Yeah. And also when we look at, you know, gaining this sense of peace and fulfillment and joy, it is a practice. You've got to work to be happy. Yeah. You've got to do it every day. You've got to show up, you know. So yeah, being in flow is an authentic listening, and that is the place that we have to come to, and that is when we're in the Tao, in the center, and just allowing to be guided. We are exactly, and we've been telling ourselves this lie for 10 years, and half the time, you know, sometimes genuinely we say we don't know, we kind of know, like, you know, it is there, but we can be so deep-rooted that we don't know. We can be unconscious to many patterns, but then the more we practice, the more we know, and then the more that we can just continue to come to this place of higher self. But if I could label what I practice a fluid embodied flow. So what that means is breath and movement, you know, listening to the body. I use music. Sometimes I won't use music. And diving into all facets of the body. So the heart, like feeling into the bones, the muscles, the cells, the mind, the spirit, you know, captivating it all, you know, really bringing in all of it.
Because there's all sorts of, obviously, there's all different schools, isn't there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, you may be in a class, and obviously, you know, there's a lovely teacher here in Liverpool. You know, I've always really enjoyed, you know, Debbie Ratcliffe. You know, she's got this sort of real beautiful yin yang element to her practices. You know what I mean? And you can be in a yang posture, but it can still be very yin. You know what I mean? And or you can be in a yin posture, and it can still feel really yang. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and she integrates the two incredibly well. I know she's been teaching yoga for such a long time, and she's just one of my personal favourites. Here in Liverpool, and you might be in a class, you might be going through a flow in the vinyasa sequence, but there's yin postures in there. You know what I mean? And so there's definitely a sense how a lot of teachers now, as Usman was saying, without, you got to let go of the labels, haven't you? You got to let,
exactly, yeah.
Instead of being drawn to, what's this posture called and why is it called this? And it's like, okay, let's be careful of that. Maybe that, let's honour all that, but let's maybe be careful of that trap there, and let's come back to what it is truly about. You know what I mean? And I know it's been systemized. We're talking about the 8 limbs of yoga. It gives us an opportunity, as you were saying before, is yoga's it's not just on the mat, it's off the mat, but we use the mat as a container to cultivate. You know what I mean? Is to upgrade, to embody, is to know, and then it's the lessons are actually off the mat, aren't they? You know what I mean? When we come out of a yoga class, it's like, okay, well, how am I behaving? How am I weaving what I've learned today into this moment, into my afternoon, into my evening, you know what I mean, and into tomorrow, into my family, into my own life, you know what I mean? And that's where the deeper teaching starts to happen, isn't it? And so yoga, it feels like you're almost in a constant yoga class. You know
Life is the class.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Life is the meditation. Do you know what I'm saying? You sit there in meditation for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, but life is the meditation. And we get these tools, don't we, through yoga and meditation, like the breath, like awareness, like surrender, like tapping into that warrior energy, whatever it might be. And what's really most important is how we use those tools on a day-to-day basis, moment to moment, observing the mind, becoming aware of your patterns, becoming aware of your emotions and feelings, inquiring into them. Why did that come up? Where's that come from? What belief has led to this?
Yeah.
It goes deep, but it's a moment-to-moment thing. Like, it never leaves. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, and again, trying to take away all the labels of yoga, because yoga, it's got an Eastern vibe to it, hasn't it? You know what I mean? It's got traditions of Hinduism and Buddhism and all that kind of stuff, weaved into it, when really we're just getting in the body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I suppose being a man in the world, but being, coming into the world from a condition of being a Muslim. How's that journey been for you then, Usman? Of like being conditioned and having these sets of beliefs around that faith to where you are today? Do you still practice elements of that religion, and do you see similarities between yoga and being a Muslim and all that kind of stuff? If you could maybe shine a little bit of light on that.
Yeah, so really interesting topic, and there's so much to go into there. It's like, to what extent do I share? But first of all, what I'll say is there are connections. Really, it's one song that we're trying to sing. Do you know what I mean? We're all trying to sing this one song, but we've just got different vibes on it, and some people are saying, oh, that sounds stupid and this sounds better. But what I've really come to experience is that there are these common denominators between all spiritual practices, and those common denominators are like believing in a sense of oneness between all things, in some kind of higher creation or higher power. And then we can get into more kind of surface level details like fasting and postures and breathing and prayer. And I see all of this in Islam. I see all of this in yoga. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's really interesting for me as I'm aging, as I'm growing, as I'm experiencing my own path. It's funny because I'm starting to see more and more that the path that I have chosen, which I don't have a name for, it does share a lot with the path that I was given as a child anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Especially if we talk about fasting. That's something that I love to do just for my physical and mental state. And it goes back to what we talked about with addiction. It's really powerful to just kick that out. Do you know what I mean? And just kind of give it a bit of a nip in the bud. Fasting is so powerful for that. But of course, in Islam, we've got the month of Ramadan, haven't we? And right now it's Ramadan.
Okay.
Actually, right now it's Ramadan. So my mum is fasting at home at the moment, and that whole thing is happening. And it's really interesting for me to not be integrated into that at the moment, to be not taking part, so, you know, in the way that I used to. So it's been a bit of a journey, you know. There's been light and there's been dark, you know. I've been ridiculed. I've been told I'm going to hell. Do you know what I mean? I've been told that I'm destined for hell. Do you know, guaranteed. Yeah. It's only the other day I got told that I'm guaranteed a space in hell, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, okay, well, I don't believe that. You know, I don't believe that. And if anything, I have experienced a dose of hell on earth. So I'm not fearing that I'm going to burn in hell, not for, you know, for not praying 5 times a day and stuff like that. I still truly have deep respect for anyone that follows a spiritual practice. But ultimately, it all leads to coming within ourselves, coming into ourselves, asking those questions and experiencing the wonder of life. And this is what was missing for me as a kid. You know, I was raised Muslim, and we had this Islamic community in Liverpool, do you know what I'm saying? And that community is very much alive today, and I have so much love for everyone that's part of that community. But what was missing for me was this goodness, you know, being the example of someone that lives for something greater. In religious cultures, in religious kind of groups, there's a lot of dogma, judgment. We're right, they're wrong, they're going to hell. Do you know what I mean? Literally, it sounds mad, but a lot of my childhood was like, yo, they're going to hell. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they're destined. Oh, she's a good person, but she's going to burn in hell. Do you know what I mean? So that's, for me, that didn't resonate. And I didn't necessarily try and find anything through yoga specifically, but through connecting to myself, I've really found a way to, you know, connect to that spirituality in a different way. It's kind of strange now because there's no real worship going on, in the sense that I'm not worshipping an entity. I'm worshipping life. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And that just feels so much more real to me, to step outside and just like love being alive, and then to radiate that and emanate it to everyone that I come into contact with, to be a good person, to give, to listen, to express, to share. You know, this is what life's about. And
wow, thank you for sharing that. And there was one thing that you said there, is the wonder of life. You know, the wonders of life, and it's when we just actually stop. When we, you know, I believe this whole process of COVID-19, coronavirus, is such a gift, because it's like it's just the brakes, bang. Talked about the brakes at the start, bang. There's a halt. We're at a crossroads, and when we actually stop and we take a look around, and we even for a moment contemplate life itself. Because you talk about life here, I'm going to reference Eckhart Tolle here, because he talks about life, and he talks about life experiences. So you have life experiences, you have life situations, but you have life itself. Now, life itself is an aliveness that we cannot deny. There's this, it's our consciousness, there's an aliveness there. And when we truly contemplate that, and you know, contemplation, all of these contemplative traditions are really pointing us in the direction of inquiry. To inquire, what is life? What is going on here? Who am I? And it's a great mystery, isn't it? But we embody this great mystery. You know, it's a mystery worth feeling into.
Those words, man, the great mystery.
It's a great mystery. You know, I was watching, it was funny, even yesterday I was at home and I was watching a movie which touched me, because I watched this movie when I was a child. I watched it many times and I haven't seen this movie probably for 20 years, 25 years, and it was Sinbad the Sailor. And there's so much symbology in these movies, these old movies, and there's so much symbology. And one of the guys, he looks like a bit of a wizard, and you could tell he's a bit of a magic man, and he's a bit like the Stoics from from the Roman times and the Egyptian times, the philosophers. And there's a part in the movie, and he holds his hand up. He says, "It's the great mystery," and there's so much beauty in that, because out of all the wonderful, teachers I've met, I mean, everyone's a teacher, but all the wonderful spiritual teachers I've come across, over my time, over the last 8 or 9 years, they reference the great mystery, and for me to embody, or even contemplate, to try and even witness what this is all about. And you think, what's the point in all this? And for me, there is no point. But for us to just truly witness life and to see it all unfolding and to be absolutely enchanted by how wonderful it really is, and it's only perspectives, and it's only our filters which wouldn't have it so, and there's it takes time to come to this awakening, and an awakening comes to us all in different ways. For anyone listening to this, you've already had an experience of this mystery. You have it many times in your day, but unconsciously. And the great part of, maybe practicing yoga or meditation or changing a perspective is to just sit with, I am here, I exist, I am in this moment, I'm watching this moment. And to contemplate the watcher, to contemplate the one watching, to feel into how mysterious it is, how fascinating it is. And in that space, there are then feelings of playfulness and contentment, and the qualities of peacefulness and simplicity are always there. They're all there. It's always there.
I think definitely, and I think it's really important to point out that the Buddha, the Christ, were human beings, and everybody has this capacity. You can achieve this. You can achieve enlightenment. You can achieve such a strong presence and, unlimited bliss. It's not specific to one certain person. You've just got to let go.
That's an interesting perspective, because, guys, just to clarify, any comments that I make towards Islam here, I ain't having any digs. This is just from my experience and what I've been told and what I've kind of picked up on as a kid. But there is the impression in certain religions that connection to the great mystery is exclusive for particular people. Do you know what I mean? And that's an interesting one, because, it's like, are certain people more in tune than others? I don't know, but all I know is that it's a great mystery, and I love the mystery, and it brings such joy into my life to experience that wonder of creation just in my t-shirt. Do you know what I mean? Just like looking at the threads of my t-shirt, you know what I mean, and just seeing the wonder of how that was created. And it's mad, do you know what I mean? Just if you just look around the room, it can get kind of trippy, just like
really contemplate what's going on.
Do you know what I mean? It's like we go past, interestingly enough, what came up as you were speaking then, it's like we go past this, you said something about that's what life's about, is this mystery, and I'm thinking life is about being enjoyed. That was the thought that came into my head. But really, this takes us even beyond enjoyment, because you can be in the great mystery and in pure wonder of the great mystery whilst experiencing suffering, whilst being in pain. You can be like, wow, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, isn't this mad that I'm this human experiencing these feelings, and there's all these chemicals popping off in my body, and what's going on, these patterns, and when I've picked them up, like, not trying to understand any of it, but just seeing that it's a big fat mystery. I prefer big fat mystery now, actually, over great mystery.
I think it's also like not like why is this happening to me? It's what is this teaching me?
Yeah.
In every moment.
And there's a great book, one of many books we could reference here. There's one called, The Unsettled Soul. And really, there's every single moment, every single trigger is really guiding us home. Guiding us home back to this essence of something which is there. And this just simple feeling of I am here, being aware of this stuff. We could maybe reference many great teachers here, Eckhart Tolle, Muji. One particular teacher of mine that I'm really enjoying at the moment is Bentino Massaro. He's a great, he just seems to, for such a young age, embodies this simplicity. Because it's incredibly simple. The mystery is right in front of us. Yeah. It's the tip of our nose. But we miss it. We miss the point. We go looking for something outside of ourselves. We're looking for something beyond of ourselves, and we are the mystery. We are it. And to really ponder that for anyone tuning in today is to just be who you are. But what's beautiful, and it's what the likes of Usman, and it's like what the likes of Kayleigh are teaching here in Liverpool. These guys are just giving you reference points. These guys are giving you a map for you to walk the terrain of your experience, inevitably walking you home, giving you the understanding how to navigate your experience so you can dive into the experience itself. And this is where embodiment comes from. And when we begin to really let go of all of our labels and our stories and our emotional past, and when we start to create space and not get so swept up in our identifications, and even trying to give life meaning, and to sit in maybe what's meaningless, and to sit in this space which at the level of your character, your ego would call boring, because unfortunately, we come back to that world of being consumed. We're always looking, always consuming to give us a sense of wholeness, when really we're already whole. The great mystery is holy.
So
the big fat mystery.
It's such a big fat mystery, and you know what? It's so interesting what you've just said. Then boredom. It's like, why do we get bored? What are we actually? Kids, and I mean really young, like babies, don't get bored. I'm watching my new nephew just come into the world now, and it's like he doesn't smoke weed. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't eat cakes. He doesn't even do yoga. Well, he is doing yoga. Do you know what I mean? He is doing yoga. The guy's putting his leg over his head, and he's putting it in his mouth, and he's going all.
He's present. He's completely.
He's truly present, and that's the beautiful thing. It's like when we're present, there is no boredom, because boredom is seeking to fill time, but in the present there is no time. We've gone beyond that. Do you know what I mean? But that boredom there, that feeling of boredom, that emptiness, it's like, how can I fill this time? Is such a dangerous thing, because that is where a lot of addictions can come in.
Absolutely.
Through boredom, through a lack of purpose. But then there's also a pressure that comes with, just sitting there and doing nothing. If you were to sit down and meditate or start practicing yoga, or just lay out on the grass and look at the sky and just be present. There's a great pressure that says, I need to be doing something that matters. And that actually is where the addiction story that I touched on a little bit here stemmed from. It was like, I'm not enough doing nothing. Do you know what I mean? I need to be doing something. And I'm kind of in a strange space with that, because it's like, is that just part of being a man?
Or is it just seeking emotion? Isn't that what we're doing? Do you know, like, we're seeking emotion, aren't we? So through the boredom, through the sitting, we want a high, we want a feeling.
Stimulation.
Exactly.
I think this, puts us into the realm of what the Buddha could call, craving and aversion.
Exactly, yeah.
We go craving, or maybe a pleasure, non-pleasure cycle, and we're using the word to feel into pleasure, maybe to fill a void. And then when that sort of hit falls away because we know everything is impermanent, then we go looking for the next pleasure. And I'm saying, and I think we should go looking for pleasure, by the way.
Absolutely,
I think pleasure, in all its forms, we should explore what's pleasurable to us. Because as Usman was talking about maybe at the start of the conversation today is nobody else is going to, feel into our needs. You know what I mean? We use the world to fill that void, but we have to, feel into our own pleasure. What's pleasurable to us? How do I feel that pleasure? But not doing it from a place of lack. And I think that's the big one.
Craving.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, okay, I can make some choices here based around what lights me up. I'm going to follow my highest ecstasy and I'm going to enjoy that in the process. But I'm going to sit with where I'm at right now. And it comes back to what you said and how you weave this into your yoga classes and into your teaching, Kayleigh, is radical self-acceptance.
Absolutely,
to accept the moments as they are in all its boredom. And then maybe make skilled choices around maybe doing something that may light you up as well. So there's, instead of maybe, suppose chasing the dragon and looking for them pleasurable moments, but then sitting in non-pleasure, sitting in a place of pain, waiting for the pleasurable moments. It's like, okay, I'm going to sit in a place of acceptance. And if the moment's painful, I'm also going to learn how to sit with that, knowing it's going to pass away. And if the moment's pleasurable, I'm going to sit with that, knowing it's going to pass away. And this is it takes me into the wonders of how it's all just unfolding. And we learn how to ride all the waves, whatever the waves are.
And exactly, and be in that Tao, and be in that centre, and be in the flow. And also, I think that a really key point there is that it's okay to have pleasure. It's okay to have desire, but it becomes desire with attachment.
Yeah.
That is when we start delving into what the Buddha would say, samsara.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's okay, and it's all right to want materialistic things.
Yeah.
It's all right to want a nice hard half, to have 2 slices.
Yeah,
it's okay to have these, a nice house. It's okay. We're not saying that. It's just when you become attached and when it becomes your identity, when these things define you, that's the problem. Because you're your own person. It's when you give power to these things, then that's when it starts.
I think it's also important to maybe just bring it back to a level of how we can learn how to set some healthy boundaries around these things. I think boundaries is an important one, isn't it? Go and eat the cake. Fine, you know what I mean? I love cake. I really do. I love it. I love a beer, do you know what I mean? These things actually, there's pleasure in that. And I understand that some of it comes from a level of addiction, but also some of it comes from a level of social enterprise.
Enjoying life.
Being out with friends, having
socialising,
eating a nice cheeseburger and having that milkshake and having that piece of cake. But actually then having boundaries around it, you know what I mean? So, okay, let's set some boundaries around it. There's got to be a healthy no as well to some of this stuff. And so from my own perspective, as I evolve as a person, and I'm ever evolving, by the way, I'm always checking with my belief systems, and I always want to learn. Life is a teacher of mine. But I'm learning how to set boundaries. I'm learning how to listen to what's alive for me. But I'm learning how to say no as well. And there's power in that, isn't there?
There's pure power in that's, most of us, we love saying yes, or we are very used to saying yes, and the word no, it brings back memories of bad times, you know what I mean? It's like rejection or denial or getting told off or fear of missing out. So it's like this no is the sword and the shield combined. We've got our yes and we've got our no. We're not going in with only a sword. We're not going in with only a shield. We've got both and we can use them together. And the beautiful thing that I realised was that the world, if I go into the Asda and I buy 10 packs of cookies, the person at the checkout isn't going to say, sorry, you're not allowed to do that. That's not healthy. Do you know what I mean? When I realised and kind of became aware of that perspective, that the world isn't going to turn the tap off for me. I need to turn off the tap.
You've got the free will.
The world really ultimately just you know, I'm not painting a bad picture of the world here, but it's about the money, isn't it? So if I'm paying for those jelly beans, you know, if I'm paying for those Doritos on repeat every time, going in, getting a bag, maybe the person behind the counter is going to be thinking, bloody hell, like, he's going to town on them. But they're not going to say no to me. No. They're still going to serve me. It's having that capacity to set that healthy boundary. But for me, what's really helped me with that, being someone that has experienced difficulty with consumption for quite a while now, what's really helped me is having my core kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like self-management. How do I manage myself on a day-to-day basis? What's my bedtime? Do you know what I mean? How's my morning ritual?
Routine.
What's my identity? You know, do I identify as an athlete, or do I identify, or I'm just not even aware of that? Do you know what I mean? It's only when I then start kind of thinking to myself, you know what? I am an athlete, or I am someone who is sharing movement and health and well-being with other people. It's having that kind of identity behind it. That's like, you know what? I don't want to overconsume, because then it sacrifices the stuff that I really love about life, which is the healthy stuff.
Of course.
I love feeling good on the mat. I love feeling light in my body. And so if I don't, you know, set that healthy no, then I sacrifice that feeling of feeling good.
Absolutely. And a lot of our behavioural patterns comes from our habits, you know, and instead of having, you know, outcome-based habits, we have to also understand identity-based habits, you know what I mean? And, you know, set habits around, you know, our identity. And what you're talking about here, and what I'd like to bring into this conversation, is accountability. Is accountability. You got to hold yourself accountable. And you also have to have some people around you, some people who you trust, who can work with your stuff, and they can help you with accountability as well, you know, and this is a big one. This is a massive process, and, you know, having some sort of structure, you know, having some, you know, some healthy habits around, you know, your identity, around who you are as a person now, but maybe who you want to become. You know what I mean? Who do you want to, what is your aspirations? Where do you want to go? Even though actually on a level of, you know, meditation's nowhere to go, really, we're still moving forward. You know what I mean? We're going somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, one, there's a level of maybe being spontaneous and completely trusting in where we're going. But two, there's nothing wrong with painting your own picture. You know what I mean? And designing your own life based around the things that you value, based around the things that light you up. And this is where, you know, it comes back to truth. What's true to me is not true to somebody else. And it takes courage to own that stuff, to take responsibility and be accountable for that. Design a life, design habits, design a structure where you get the best version of yourself, you know, on a daily basis. And when that happens, you become an authentic leader. You're pioneering authenticity, and you're demonstrating to the world what it means to be real, you know, and what it means to be free. Unfortunately, from what I feel, is that people are afraid of freedom, and people need to be led, and that's okay.
It is a scary thing though, isn't it? Like, it's so easy to say, right, I'm never doing that again, and then just kind of being like, boom, instead of living the moderate life. The moderate life is hard. Do you know what I'm saying? Because with freedom comes choice, and with choice, well, that a lot of time there's so much choice. Do you know what I mean? So it brings confusion. It's such a dance between being disciplined but not being too hard on yourself, setting boundaries but also being a bit loose. It's such a dance, and it's such a lifelong journey, actually, finding that balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, finding your own moral code.
Yeah.
Your own moral codes of discipline. And I think that a lot of people are striving to be happy, but I do think a lot of people are striving for freedom, to be free. You know, I think that is, that's massive. And it also comes back to everything that you're saying is intention. You know, what is your intention for this life? You know, what do you, what do you want to be? What do you want to, who do you want to embody? Again, going back to Buddhism, there's it's a key practice to embody a deity. Well, in Hinduism as well, you know, and what attributes and what traits do you need to have to be aligned with that?
Yeah, of course. So it is good, you know, to have some sort of external what's the word I'm looking for?
Model.
Yeah, absolutely.
Role model.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
External role models, you know, for us to step up into that space. Who inspires you, Kayleigh? You know, externally, you know, what teachers you follow and or maybe deities, or, you know, what are you working with at the moment? Obviously, there's things outside yourself, people you watch, people you follow on Instagram that are showing you and demonstrating to you, you know, how for you to upgrade.
I follow, there's a few teachers that I follow that are Annie Carpenter, she's based in Canada, she's a Canadian teacher. Another lady, Cecily Mine, she's in Canada. I also really, a big teaching for mine at the moment is the Tao. You know, the Tao Te Ching, yeah, absolutely. How to be in that flow, Zen Buddhism. Yeah. But, you know, I love it all. I love the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita. You know, I'm reading a lot of that. Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, you know, Seneca, all these like beautiful teachings, which are all really guiding us into this inner strength and integrity, owning our stuff, taking accountability. And it's this healthy boundary of, this guru worship. There's so many, like, this is the beauty of people who have come before us. They can teach us so much, but it is an avenue to go into your own container and reservoir. Things that I'll take a little bit of that, I'll taste that, and I'll use it. But I'm also going to see how I can translate that.
Absolutely, and I love the way you mentioned integrity there. Do you know what I mean? It's such an alignment, isn't it? You know what I mean? When you feel like you're aligning with a part of you which is integral, you know what I mean, and then you know that to be right. There's you mentioned the moral code there before. There's just something within, isn't that? You just know this is not just my truth, but this is true. This is good. This is useful to the world. I'm advertising it. I'm demonstrating good stuff to the world. You know what I mean? And people really recognise that, don't they? And that's keeping it real, isn't it? That's authentic. And that's why you have such a big following here in Liverpool. That's why, you know, your classes are full. They feel the work that you do on yourself and continue to ever expand into. People feel that, you know. And now you're holding space for retreat. How's that feel now? You know, to hold space for a number of people, to take them on a journey over a period of what, 3 days, 4 days?
Yeah, so it's 3 days, and yeah, it's, you know, it is transformational. It is holding the space for people to really dive deep. The classes are amazing. You know, we're touching the sides in an hour. You know, we're going into a number of practices and embodiment we're coming up with a toolkit, basically, because like I said before, we can come up with all these theories, but people want to know, how can I do this and how can I maintain this as a lifelong practice? So we delve deep. We do yoga, meditation, a lot of like fire burning ceremonies, rituals, all enable, there's a balance. And again, this is what I was just about to say. This is all about balance, isn't it? You know, having a beer, going out, having fun. It's just all about, even the Tao Te Ching, all these philosophies, it is about having balance and integrating this balance daily. So in the retreats, we talk about how can we find this balance in our lives without with the pendulum being in the center and not saying too much to the right or swaying too much to the left. And a big teaching is coming into the heart, the intelligence of the heart, being guided by love. Because isn't that our purpose? Isn't that why we're here? Isn't this all to feel love? And love, people think it's mushy, and it's, you know, there's such an intelligence about love.
It's hard, it's soft, it's
tough,
it's
you know,
in between.
to love without attachment. So yeah, it's the last retreat I led, you know, we had a woman, she had a brain tumour, And 3 weeks later, after the retreat and after some work we were doing, it vanished. The doctor said it was a miracle. We had a woman who was going in for shoulder surgery. She didn't need to do that, lower back pain. We've got a guy who lost 4 stone. But all, this is all about the beauty and the magic of sharing, of coming together, of community, of spirit. When there's 20 people in a space, or 10, whatever, how many people open up and having the strength and the courage to be vulnerable. There's nothing more beautiful than that. There's nothing more sexy than that. There's nothing more respectful. There's a reverence that you have when someone can show their humility. And I think this is a shift that's going on right now. People are opening up.
Ready to sit in circles, aren't you?
And tread those barriers. So yeah, it's a beautiful roller coaster of releasing, of letting go, and also coming to this on the last day. There's a real happiness, there's laughter, there's a healing. People are lighter. It's
can't deny the
special.
Experience, the experience these people are having, and they can't deny it. And and it's actually not that far away for people, is it? Even you can come to yoga class and it can change your life. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you go on a retreat with the likes of yourself, and if you show up, if you're accountable, and you go to an edge, and there's levels of vulnerability, then it's inevitable transformation. Whatever that transformation is for that person in that moment, it's inevitable that they're coming away feeling lighter, with a toolbox, and then having an opportunity to apply this stuff in day-to-day situations. And that's the big one.
This is the work, of course.
We call it the work. There's someone also, you talk about balance here, and there's someone I reference here, Jordan Peterson. I know I asked you guys to watch a documentary last night. It was just alive for me, and I know. And he talks about the blue church and the red religion, and there's this sort of left wing, right wing, and he talks about just we need the both of them, but we've got to sit in the middle with it. You know what I mean? And as Usman was saying there, you got to be serious, but you got to be playful as well. You know what I mean? And being too playful, you end up maybe not getting shit done. Being too serious, and for me, that's like it's a disease.
Yeah, it's not even fun.
It's finding these the middle ground with a lot of this stuff, and then putting it into action. Talking about retreat there from Kayleigh's point of view. I know you've been doing a lot of this inner work yourself, Usman, and being a young man in the world, a young king. Mid to late 20s. What's next for you? How are you projecting? I suppose your immediate future, and then your short, medium, and even long-term goals, if you would say.
Okay, beautiful. I think I'll start with the long-term goals, because straight away it wakes up my vision.
Nice.
When you've asked me that question, what is my vision? And I don't know how I'm going to get there. But having a piece of land and living a simple life is my dream. I want to live in nature. I want to grow my own vegetables. I've wanted this, for years now. Halfway through my degree, I was studying maths, and then halfway through I decided I wanted to live on a farm. Do you know what I'm saying? So kind of had a big shift there in life vision. I want to live the simple life with people that I love, sharing, just enjoying life together. Do you know what I'm saying? Living connected. And when I'm in nature, especially for prolonged periods of time, I feel so much more in tune with myself. I feel healthier. My habits are better. I sleep when the sun goes down, because if I'm living without an abundance of artificial light, there's just nothing to do. Do you know what I mean? So you go to bed at night, or you watch the stars. Do you know what I mean? And so long term, it's the simple life, which means if we reverse engineer, I'm in a process of simplification right now from this point. At the moment, it's through teaching yoga and meditation, right? That just seems to be what's calling me at the moment. I can logicize about where I'm going to go in life and how I plan to do that. But there's also an element of surrender to what it is that I am receiving from the great mystery. Do you know what I mean? The visions that I'm getting day to day as I meditate, I get vision of what the next step is. And it's like, create this video or do this work on your website, make this course, design this workshop, whatever it is. So at the moment, it's through teaching yoga and meditation, but that's growing. We've got a website coming. I'm building a website at the moment, which is really exciting. Just finished recording my first meditation course, actually.
Lovely.
So nice. That's going to be getting released quite soon. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Ultimately, that, next step after that, it's leading me down this path of digital heart business. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm creating from my heart, but I'm doing it through digital means so that I can explore the world the way that I really love to. I'm a cat. Do you know what I mean? I love to get out and about. I love to have me adventures. But I would love to also build this kingdom that I'd like to call my business, where I'm bringing in clients online, coaching people one-on-one, just doing what I'm doing now, but in a more mobile, automated way.
There's a methodology to it, isn't it? There's a structure.
Yeah, there is a structure. It's all about movement, meditation, and mastery. Do you know what I'm saying? So we've got the movement and the yoga or the body weight strength. Maybe we lift some heavy rocks as well. Do you know what I mean? Maybe we get a bit gritty.
Yeah, nice.
Do you know what I'm saying? I'm all about it. I'm all about that. Then we've got the meditation, which is all about bringing balance to our minds, taking back our minds. Through the movement, we're taking back our body. Through the meditation, we're taking back our mind. And then mastery is the implementation of these tools in creating, in a sense, a new you. A more refined version of you, one that's just on point. And in doing so, we can enjoy life a lot more, right? So I'm kind of on that path towards mastering my own self, my own behaviors, my own habits and beliefs. And I'm really wishing to share this with as many people as possible. So stay tuned for the website that will be coming out soon, YouTube channel as well.
What's the website called?
At the moment, it's selfmastery.com, actually, slfmastery.com. I guess you could go and check it out. It's kind of under construction at the moment, but you might enjoy what you find on there. But that's probably subject to change.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't get attached to that label that I've put out there. Just be open to something new coming from Usman. It's going to be big. It's going to be beautiful. Yeah, nice. It's going to be a big fat mystery.
Wow. I sit here and I feel an incredible level of excitement, firstly, for where you're up to in that projection. And having got to know you over the last couple of years and how you weave your way into the community, you're a big noise, but you're a big, beautiful noise. And you hold an incredible integrity, actually, of truth. And it's really beautiful to see. I think, for any man, tuning into this, it's for everybody, these conversations, and I'm sure everybody listening to Usman's story today is inspired, as I am. But for these young men, Usman, he's 27, but he's been living an examined life for a long time, since around 18, 19, the man's travelled around the world for 2 years, he's lived away from home. But he seems to continue now the journey of travelling inside. He examines himself daily. And he uses the tools of yoga, meditation, and community to help him feel into his experience of life. And it's just a wonderful. It's just wonderful to have him around Liverpool, and I'm sure you guys will get to meet Usman in the future. He does some great work here. With all the stuff he's moving into. So I'm excited for you, bro. Thank you for being here today and sharing your story. We can keep going. There's a lot more in there. But yeah, there's a period of initiation here. We're always initiating into manhood, and it takes experience. It takes time to become a man. Or I'd like to maybe say, to move into mature masculinity. But you used the word refined before, and we're always constantly refining. We're always constantly sharpening ourselves and letting go and becoming better. And there's no destination to that. There is no destination to that. So truly blessing having you here today and calling me out to get you on the show. Yeah, and I think I'm really excited for your endeavours, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, brother, and thank you for having me on the show, man. And I'm really glad that, you know, I feel comfortable with you, Martin. Do you know what I'm saying? I feel comfortable around you. And the first time we met, we just vibed, didn't we? And so I just thought, let's just send him a message and get on that podcast. Shy kids don't get sweet, you know what I mean?
Shy kids don't get
I'm
sweet.
all about being cheeky and asking for what I want. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I welcome that energy as well, you know. And it was a great mirror for me. My mother always said, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I actually don't think we ask for what we want nowadays, you know what I mean? You know, in all walks of life, you know, whether it's the bedroom, you know, we don't ask for what we want, you know, whether it's in the kitchen, you know, whether it's in a restaurant, you know, whatever it is, we've got to get used to asking for what we want and not be afraid of the no, you know what I mean? Because, you know, if we're going to say no to the world, we've also got to receive the no, you know what I mean? So it's definitely a two-way coin.
That's the thing, innit? The worst thing that can happen is that you're going to get a no. It's like, you might as well just ask. That the amount of times, if we just touch a little bit on the adventure that I took whilst I was travelling, wow, like the whole theme of that journey is ask. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a whole theme around it. It's one word. It's just ask. If you want the food, just ask. If you want a place to stay, just ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Kayleigh, so just wrapping this conversation up today, and what's next for you then? You know, I know you've got you were actually away last year. You've done some travelling, didn't you? You know, away for a number of months.
Yeah.
And then you're back in Liverpool now. What's sort of coming up for you? Is there any sort of projects you want to be moving into towards, you know, how 2020's unfolding? You know, we're now in May 2020.
Yeah.
And what does the rest of the year look like for you and, you know, and beyond?
Yeah, I was away last year. I was working in the Philippines in a retreat centre. I was head teacher there. So, yeah, that was really interesting. I learned a lot. It was a beautiful space. And for me, it's delving deeper into my purpose, really, which is to help people find connection and embody this radical self-acceptance and personal power, to be able to, you know, to enable them to live a life of joy and peace and serenity from that. So I'm leading retreats. I've got a retreat at the beginning of August and September. They're both sold out. And I'm doing 4 retreats next year, 1 a quarter and maybe 1 abroad. So yeah, I'm really feeling a place of gratitude. You know, I'm loving Liverpool. I love everybody that I work with. Everybody is my teacher, and I feel so passionate about helping people create their own manual. So providing the tools to be able to maintain this life. So, and that's why we go on retreat, because, you know, we need a few days to...
And if people want to get older, you know, whether they want to go on retreats or even with the yoga centres, you know, what centres are you teaching at the moment? Is you're about in the city?
With the way things are at the moment, I've had to cancel a few things, but my retreats are currently in the Lake District.
Okay.
The Lake District and the Peak District.
It's over the weekend. Days,
yeah, it's over the weekend, and then I want to do one abroad for about 5 days, I think, next year. But
and you're teaching a bit of yoga in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Not at the moment, but obviously in some of the studios as they get back up.
So I teach here. I teach at Yoga Nation. I teach at the Yoga Loft, and I coach at hospitals.
Great.
So I teach the NHS. Yeah, corporate work.
Lovely. Okay, so we're about to wrap this up. But before we do, I'd like to. It's always good to give, you know, the listener maybe an opportunity to tap into something, maybe a recommendation from Usman and from Kayleigh. So, is there any books you're reading at the minute? Is there any podcasts you listen to? Is there any teachers that you're following? you know, maybe 1 or 2 books or whatever's alive for you that you really feel as if would benefit the listener. I mean, this has been such a great conversation, you know, and it's funny because I don't really know where the conversations are going to go, you know, and it's very much about, you know, the slogan here for creating spaces, real conversations with real people. And it always seems to dive into human behavior somewhere down the line. It always has a definitely a reference point of meditation and looking within. And there's flavors of the mystery and awareness that weaves its way through these conversations. And it's always for the benefit of firstly of ourselves. You know, we're all learning from each other here. We're all, you know, it's great to come together. We're just having a cup of tea. We're talking about life. But definitely there's an intention from all of us sitting in the studio today of service. You know, we actually want to educate people. We want to inspire people. You know, we want to create a container for people to learn, for you to look beyond maybe some of your belief systems, and also you know, create a container of mastery so you can really feel into the best version of yourself. So yeah, it's great to just be in that space and to just be pretty radical and freestyle what's alive for us. So finishing off, Usman, is there any recommendations at the moment that you'd like to share with the audience?
Let's see. A book that came out pretty much instantly, as you've asked, that is a book called Manuscript Found in Accra, and this is by Kayleigh, who's the author of The Alchemist. That book for me is just so beautiful and so poetic. It really touches on so many different areas of life. It touches on defeat, it touches on desire, it touches on love, elegance, authenticity, disappointment. It touches on so many in these beautiful little chapters. And it's written in kind of story format as well. So I really love that book. That's something that I've been reading at the moment. It just rings bells for me. So that's Manuscript Found in Accra by Kayleigh. In terms of other things that I would recommend, if you're looking, you know what, I'll put a message out there directly to the kind of gym goers and the people that, you know, I very much used to spend a lot of time with. This are the bodybuilders, the powerlifters. If you're someone that wants to get into yoga, you want a practice that's going to challenge you, but also allow you to grow your ability physically and mentally, etc., in many different areas. Patrick Beach is a teacher that I've been following at the moment through YouTube. I've also been doing a few of his classes through the Aloe Moves platform. And that guy is full power. Like, honestly, he's really challenged me and taken my practice up to the next level. So I would definitely recommend him. And finally, I would just say that ultimately you are the author and you are the teacher. And the greatest tip that I feel I can share in this moment is to just ask questions. So question your thoughts, question your beliefs, question your emotions and your behaviors and your attitudes. Why did this come up? Seek to understand yourself, because in doing that, you embark on a journey that's pretty much lifelong, but it's a beautiful journey of discovery. And ultimately, I would actually direct people towards my content on Instagram. That's the main platform that I'm using at the moment. I'm under the name Usman the Human. So that's USMAN, the Human, one word on Instagram. It'll be the same on YouTube, but that'll obviously change in some time. But just for videos, insightful videos, because I feel personally, I'm a bit of a voice for a particular generation or kind of person. I really enjoy showing my scars. I love showing me dirty, dark sides, do you know what I mean? But in a fun way, that's not taken too seriously. So, you know, maybe you could get some inspiration from some of the content that I've put out there.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's relatable as well, isn't it? People need to relate to people like you nowadays, you know.
I had a guy come up to me the other day, sorry, just to interject there. I had a brother that I used to go to school with come up to me. I just bumped into him on the street. The guy instantly started opening up to me about feelings that he said that he'd never shared with anyone because he'd seen videos that I put out. Yeah. Do you know, me talking about certain things, weaknesses, do you know, exposing me weaknesses. And so, you know, some people would say, don't show your vulnerability because it then makes you weak and it makes you obviously vulnerable to defeat, if that's the kind of attitude that you want to look at it with. But the way that I've experienced the rewards of vulnerability, strangers, people that I went to school with, people walking up to me saying, wow, I've seen those videos and you know what? It's like you were speaking what was in my mind. And when someone says that, for me, it's just like, wow, massive fulfillment, you know. Yeah.
Reaching normal guys and not,
normal people, gym goers, you know what I mean? Like school kids, like whoever it is, normal people. Like, you don't need to be some kind of yogi. You don't need to shave your head. You don't need to be identified with any group. You don't even have to have it as part of your kind of culture. Just normal people, do you know what I'm saying? That's who I'm focusing my energy towards. It's the normal people, especially though, the people that I went to school with, the people that are part of my generation, the people that have got a bit of grit in them, the people that were lighting fires when they were kids, causing trouble and doing all kinds, getting chases and all that, you know what I mean? The people that were in school believing that what made them cool was how many girls they were getting with, or how many people they pulled on a night out, or whether they've got a six-pack or not. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm very much part of that generation. I went to school with a lot of these people. A lot of these guys are close to me heart, you know what I mean? I got a lot of these brothers and sisters very close to me. So the average kind of everyday person that fits into that category, you know, come and tune in and let's see what happens.
I can echo that, you know, to be a Scouse lad and to, you know, to being on the streets for such a long time and now, like, the phone calls and the messages of just like normal fellas, you know what I mean, and normal women, you know, Scousers, you know what I mean, gritty people who, like, you know, just maybe need a little bit of direction, do you know what I mean, or just reaching out. That's so welcome. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that powerful stuff.
Thank you, brother.
I wish you all the best on them endeavours. Kayleigh, finishing off.
I'm reading a book at the moment, Ryan Holiday, Stillness. It's a really beautiful book. It is. A lighter book that's good to read. One of the first books that I read is Robin Sharma, the monk who sold his Ferrari. That's a goodie. Fuck It, The Spiritual Way. It's a good book. It's a funny one. There's this fella, he's got a podcast named Martin Boney. He's not bad.
And an app. Get on that.
But no, Martin, I think that your podcast, your app, that's what I was meant to say, your app is great, you know, really amazing content, very relatable, digestible, and very authentic, true. So I recommend everybody to listen to that. Really beautiful app. And, you know, getting on the mat and creating your own picture. I said in the morning, just even if it's for 5 minutes, have a journal next to you, breathe into the body, breathe into your space, and just write down what comes up and work from that, and then let it grow. And nourish yourself with your breath, with your with what feels good.
Yeah, good. Thank you for sharing that. You know, it's I've really enjoyed how things have unfolded for you over the past few years in Liverpool. You know, got a really wonderful personal relationship with you, and I love watching you grow, and you do such a great job here at Planet Yoga and holding space for so many people. And now for you to really dive into, you know, retreats and feel into the fruits that work offers, it's really powerful. So yeah, thank you for being you. Thank you for being authentic and keeping it real, and shining a light for other people and other women. You know what I mean? You know, and I know there's such a strong feminine energy within you, and how you want to really open that space, you know, it's from such a clean intention, from an open heart. I honour that within you. So yeah, thank you so much for being here and expressing yourself in your rawness and your authentic being.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to you know, how things unfold for you in the coming months, in the coming years. And it's an exciting time for all of us, and collectively it's something great to be a part of in Liverpool, and I'm loving just watching how things are unfolding. I truly believe that we are pioneering and showing and creating space for such connection in Liverpool, you know what I mean? And, we're just normal people, we're just, doing extraordinary things, and it's not a far away for anybody listening today. We've all got a story to tell. We all really just wish to be in a place which feels authentic. And so I invite you to take your mask off. I invite you to be vulnerable. But that takes courage, but it takes awareness as well. So yeah, there's definitely things which I invite you to feel into. And don't be afraid. What's the worst that can happen? Maybe you ask yourself, what's the best that can happen? So I'd like to finish on a little poem today, actually, a poem which a friend of mine, Paul Baxter, he wrote this morning, and he put on the fellowship. So I'm just going to finish up with this, and then we're going to be signing out for the day. So here we go. If you have eyes to see, you'll see a beautiful man in me, one who lives his life full of joy and empathy. If you have eyes to see, you'll see a different side to me, one who followed his heart in a tide of fear and uncertainty. If you have eyes to see, you'll see a very different me, one who shines a light so bright the whole world can see. If you have eyes to see, you'll see a surprising side of me, one who's mastered the art of magic and wizardry. If you have eyes to see, you'll see an angel in me, one who writes a sentence as pure as maths can be. If you have eyes to see, you'll see a legend in me, one who cracked the code of the word and literacy. If you have eyes to see, you'll see a mighty king in me, one who frees the people from modern slavery. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great evening, and we'll see you all again soon for the next podcast with Creating Space. It's me, Martin Bowen, signing out. Guys, have a great evening. Usman, Kayleigh, bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
See you guys later. Thank you.
Creating Space is sponsored by the Scouse Guru app, an all-purpose meditation app that feeds into all your needs, developing peace of mind, increasing mental focus, lowering stress levels while discovering inner stillness, awakening your potential and educating you on all matters related to human behaviour and personal development. Download the app for free on the App Store or get it on Google Play today.